In this video, I'll uncover the best exercise that you must know about for insulin resistance. Millions of people suffer daily from insulin resistance, and it's really complex as to how you go about reversing this issue. You know, there's the proper diet, there's proper nutrition, and then of course there's proper exercise. And that's what we're gonna talk about in this video. We're gonna talk about the best exercise for insulin resistance because, right, there's a lot of different types of exercises that you can do, but which ones are going to really be the best for bringing down your blood sugar levels and also bringing down your insulin levels? That's what we'll discuss in this video. But before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, it's a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. Be sure to join our notification community. That way it can help you excel your health and your life. Also, before we get started, I want to mention that our meal plan for next month is ready to go. If you're not part of our meal plan system yet, you can simply go and click on the link in the description to join that. Basically, what I do is I share with you my meal plan every month so that we can take all the guesswork out of eating healthy for you. The cool thing about the meal plan that I offer is it is insulin resistance approved. Okay, so if you're suffering from this issue, you are going to be able to follow this meal plan and get great results. And it's approved by my standards, not the standards that were used when my grandfather was in the hospital and they would give him, a high carb meal with lots of sugar and follow that up with an insulin shot. That's not the standards we're using. We're using my standards. So anyway, it's a great diet system for people who have insulin resistance and really all people in general. This is how I eat every single day. So check that out in the description. Let's go ahead and first talk about the physiology behind insulin resistance. I want to kind of touch on a few data points here so that we can really understand where we're coming from. Now, when we look at insulin resistance, it's basically a problem here, and this is how it works, and this is what we're looking at when insulin is actually functioning correctly in the body, when the physiology is functioning correctly. Basically, you're going to have carbohydrate consumption, you're going to have sugar consumption. The blood sugar rises. When the blood sugar rises, we have the pancreas that releases insulin. That insulin goes around, picks up the blood or picks up the sugar and basically puts it into the cell, and then you have stored sugar. That stored sugar is going to be used by your brain, it's going to be used by your muscle tissue, it's going to be used by your whole body to function, okay? That's proper function, proper functioning physiology. Now let's go ahead and look at it when it is not functioning correctly. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to have that carbohydrate consumption, blood sugar rises, and then the sugar goes to be put in the cell for stored energy. And the problem is it can't get into the cell. The sugar can't get in the cell, and then as a result, more insulin is released. You have high insulin levels at this point. You have high blood sugar levels at this point, and it's just this cascading problem that gets worse over time if you don't take the proper steps to reverse it. And as you may know, when your insulin levels rise, you start putting more fat on the body. It's really a negative feedback cycle for your overall health, your cardiovascular health, everything. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the symptoms. Like I said, I want to touch over some of these data points just so that you can follow this, all the way through and really understand this topic. Now, common causes. Now, when we look at common causes of insulin resistance, it's going to be weight gain or belly fat. So if you have a lot of excess weight and belly fat on your body, eating too many calories every single day, high sugar intake is also another one. A lot of inflammation throughout the body. Okay, if you're someone who just is, always in pain and you ache all the time, and when somebody, let's say if you're going to go get a massage and somebody just lightly, touches your skin, you feel a lot of pain. There's a good chance that you have a chronic inflammation issue. Decreased physical activity, and also poor gut health. Okay, almost every person who has insulin resistance has poor gut health. I talk about this quite a bit. I'll put a link in the description below too to my gut health video series so that you can work on improving it if you have insulin resistance. They really go hand in hand. If you want to reverse insulin resistance, you have to really tackle the physiology associated with the insulin resistance issue, but you also have to tackle the gut health issue. Common symptoms are intense thirst and hunger, fatigue, tingling in the hands and feet, frequent urination, hungry post meals, and also dark patches on the skin, okay? Now these symptoms right here can kind of give you an idea if you have an issue with insulin resistance, but is not how you actually base whether or not you have the problem. We want to do proper testing. There's a couple tests that you can do. First test is going to be the A1c test. The test is typically known as one of the best ones to do. Basically what they do is they look at your hemoglobin and they are able to look at it and see how much sugar is attached to it. They can see how much glycation is occurring during this time. And the reason that the A1c is a great test is simply because it's able to really look over a multiple week period and understand whether or not this has been a continued problem for you. Now, typically when your blood sugar is tested, they also look at other tests as well. They won't just typically do one, they'll do many. Another one is going to be the fasting blood glucose test. Basically, you fast for 8 hours. An example of this would be you taking like a little blood monitor, blood sugar monitor, and when you wake up in the morning, you prick your finger, you take the blood, and then if you get results that are over 120, so if your fasting blood sugar is over 120, that means you have diabetes. If it's over 100, that means you have pre-diabetes. Okay. If it's 100, between like 80 and 100 or 70 and 100, then you're typically fine. So anyway, fasting blood sugar is one way, and that one's great because you can do it right in the comfort of your home. And then there's the random glucose test as well that is typically done, and that's just basically they take your glucose randomly just throughout the day. They test just like I mentioned here, but they don't do it on a fasted state. Now let's go ahead and talk about exercise and insulin resistance now that you know about this, okay? Like I mentioned, it's really a complex thing in order to reverse this issue. It's not just about nutrition. It's not just about making sure that you're taking proper supplementation. It also is about making sure that you're getting proper exercise. It's that full lifestyle approach. And so let's talk about this now. So why is this important? And really, what does the journals say? What is some of the research saying on exercise and insulin resistance? Now, to give you an idea, it's all leading towards the high intensity interval training. When we see some of the best research, getting some of the best results out there, high intensity interval training is very promising. Now, in the journal of Physiology, what they did is they had these individuals go and do 16 minutes of all-out cycling. Okay, so what they were doing in this 16 minutes is they were doing 30-second intervals. Okay, so they do like 30 seconds on, they take a break, and then they do 30 seconds on all out vigorous activity. So you can imagine sitting down on a bike, and when you get on the bike, you just cycle as fast as you can for 30 seconds, and then you take a quick break. They were doing that for 16 minutes, and they were using the Wingate test or the Wingate method, and they did that over a 14-day period, and they found that it drastically improved insulin sensitivity, okay? So this was an example of high-intensity interval training drastically improving insulin sensitivity. Very important for people who are type 2 diabetics, people who are insulin resistant, people who also have pre-diabetes, okay? And even people who just really want to, stay healthy. I mean, this is a great form of exercise, and I've talked about it multiple times on this channel. Now, the other study right here that we're going to look at is by the Biomedical Central Endocrine Disorders, and they took 16 young men over a 2-week period. They had them do supervised high-intensity interval training. And like I said, if you're kind of wondering the details of high-intensity interval training, I will get to that. I will explain this whole method in just a moment. Just want to talk about some of the research behind it first. Over a 2-week period, they did the HIIT, 15 minutes of exercise per day, and they found remarkable improvements in insulin action. Basically, what they're saying is that over this 2-week period with these 16 young men, 15 minutes a day, they found that the physiological mechanism and how insulin works, it started functioning correctly, right? We started seeing all these muscles rapidly uptaking some of the glucose, really taking some of the burden off the body, and lowering that blood sugar, making insulin more sensitive as well. All very powerful stuff. And so let's look at one more study here. And basically there's one in the frontiers of physiology. They took 40 women over a 10-week period, and all metrics of cardiometabolic health improved. Okay, so basically what they were saying is not only did their insulin become more sensitive, not only did they decrease insulin levels, but the other thing that happened there is their blood sugar went down. And they also were able to lose weight, and they actually specifically mentioned that they had fat loss, okay? So that's why they're saying all metrics of cardiometabolic health increase, which is really important for your overall health. Because, at the end of the day, like I mentioned, like the idea of insulin resistance being simple, it's really not. It's more of a complex issue in the body. It's affecting your heart. It's affecting your entire body and the way it functions. So we want to not only lose the fat, but improve our cardiovascular health, improve our metabolic health throughout this whole process. And there's plenty of research out there proving that it does so. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the basic concepts, because I want to talk about like what they did in the research, but I also want to talk about how I utilize it with some of the patients that I'm working with. And so basically this is, high intensity interval training is going to be a short duration workout. We're talking between about 5 and 20 minutes. I'll talk about basically giving you the details as to when you should do it for 5 and when you should do it for like 15 to 20, okay? So it's a short duration workout, but it's designed to be done at very high intensity, like maximum output, right? One of the ways you could think of this is doing things like sprints, okay? If we were to just sprint, let's say you sprinted 40, 50 yards, that's maximum output, okay? And of course, a sprint for everyone is gonna look different. If you're 60 years of age and out of shape versus someone who's 40 and in decent shape, a sprint will look very different, but it doesn't matter. It's maximum output for you as an individual. And so that's what it's always important to remember, because some people say, well, you know, at my age and I can't do sprints. Well, you just do sprints to the best of your ability. Okay, so sprints would be an example. Another example would be cycling, okay? Doing cycling for about 15 to 20 minutes and going on and off vigorous activity using something like the Wingate test or the Wingate method. So you're gonna do 30 seconds on, as vigorous and as hard as you can, and then take like a 30-second break, and then do 30 seconds on, take like a minute break. Whatever breaks are really needed for you as an individual, it's really important to incorporate those breaks. The way I really describe it is like, if you were to go 30 seconds on, and let's say you're really breathing hard, you want to get to a point where you're calming your breath, okay? So if that point is, let's say, 60 seconds, a full minute that you need in order to really calm your breath and kind of get your composure back, then you wait that 60 seconds and then you jump in and you do another 30-second interval, okay? And you can do that for, like I said, 15, 20 minutes, okay? Now, the other thing is, we talked about sprints, okay? So that's simple running. We talked about cycling. So if you have a bike at home, you can do that with a bike. Now, the other thing you can do is be creative. You know, I talk about this all the time as well. Is like, it doesn't have to be cycling. It doesn't have to be sprints. You can be creative in the way that you're going and doing this high intensity interval training. You can do, for instance, some squats, you can do some push-ups, you can do, really you can create your own little intervals. I used to do this all the time. And when you create these intervals and you make workouts, or you come up with particular exercises that include more muscle groups, it's going to be even better for you, okay? So for instance, like a squat is going to use the large muscles of your legs, so doing that is going to be very powerful. So you can be creative in the way that you go about making these little high intensity workouts and routines up, and so you can really choose whatever exercises you want, put them all together, and let's say maybe you find 6 different exercises and you go through and just do 30-second intervals of each one. One may be push-ups, one may be squats, one may be some light lunges or something. So anyway, you go in, you create this routine, and you can have a little bit of fun with it. Now, how often should you do it? Okay, and I talked about how I mentioned, well, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes a day. But here's the thing, is that I found with my patients is that when they go and they do this high intensity interval training for just 5 minutes in the morning, so they wake up and they do high intensity interval training for 5 minutes, it drastically decreases their blood sugar throughout the entire day, which is really, really powerful, okay? So we're thinking to ourselves, well, high intensity interval training is typically done the standard way of about 15 to 20 minutes, but simply waking up and putting in a high intensity workout for about 5 minutes, doing it in the morning and then doing it around mid-afternoon or night, it really helps improve your glucose levels in the bloodstream. So very, very powerful. It doesn't have to be a full-on 15, 20-minute workout. Now, when we look at high-intensity interval training in general, this is really an incredible way of working out because, I mean, it's in such a short time frame, right? Nobody can argue that they can't work out for 15 to 20 minutes a day. Like, everybody has that time. Everybody can lend their health 15 to 20 minutes, no doubt. But even when we're talking about even shorter time frames of just 5 minutes, it's really powerful. So wake up in the morning, 5 minutes. Before you go to bed at night or like early evening, do another 5 minutes, really powerful stuff. And then of course, ideally, you want to get into those 15 to 20 minute ranges where you're doing this, but doing so at the very least 5 minutes morning and night is really good. Now, the other thing I want to mention here, so when we look at the high intensity interval training, if we're only doing it for 5 minutes, it's very important that we go in and make sure that we are doing exercises that include more muscle groups, okay? An example of an exercise that would use more muscle groups would be something like a squat. So you would squat down, come back up, do a bicep curl, and then a shoulder press that uses a lot of muscles, and then squat again, and just keep doing that, okay? So doing some different workouts where you're really engaging a lot of muscle groups for 5 minutes first thing in the morning, extraordinarily powerful. So this is some of the best exercise that you can do when you have insulin resistance. I also want to mention that if you're looking to go in and learn more about insulin resistance, check out this video I did right here, because it's going to help explain this problem even more and talk about some of the very specific nutrition that you can utilize in order to get positive results. The other thing I want to mention, if you are not using any type of nutrition, it's very important to make sure that you're storming these receptors in order to improve insulin sensitivity with the proper nutrients that are necessary. I'll put a link in the description to the formula that we use clinically in order to help people do this. Give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you have any questions, be sure to put them right in the comment section here below. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more about exercise, weight loss, nutrition, reversing health conditions like insulin resistance, because we talk about all of that here. We also even talk about fasting. And so hit that bell notification so that you never miss a new piece of content. I'll see you in the next video.